So hello and welcome to Rudi Kennard. Rudi, it's great to see you today. Thanks very much for meeting up with me online and also for agreeing to come down to Devon on the 29th. It sounds like it's going to be a really exciting day. What are you planning to talk about?
Well, I know there's an awful lot of interest within the coaching and therapy and change working field towards, well, what are the three principles? Why are they helpful? How do you talk about it? What's the value in talking about it? So I'd really love to talk about that.
Great. And I know that your actual life took quite a change actually when you came across the three principles, because a lot of people know you and recognize you because you do a lot of video work. So tell me, was there a kind of a before and after that was something that you can see quite clearly now that changed for you?
Yeah, well, initially I trained as a coach, so I studied neurolinguistic programming, which is programming the mind for success, clinical hypnotherapy, which is using the unconscious for therapy. I mean, these are my definitions, are not sort of accurate to everyone's definitions. I looked into Tai Chi Qigong and taught that, and mindfulness meditation, and I'll stop there because I could bore you with all the different strategies and techniques and approaches I studied. But when I came across the three principles as an understanding nearly 13 years ago, after probably spending about a mortgage on all of this training, it struck me that it was different, but I didn't really know how. To me, what it was is Sydney Banks, the uncoverer of this understanding, and his good friend and colleague, Dr. Roger Mills, who's a pioneer of the understanding, came over to England to do the first trainer of trainers. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it or not. But what I realized from hanging out with Roger and Sid and some of the people that came over was that they were just very normal people, very authentic, very genuine, very loving. They didn't seem to have like big egos. They were just very down to earth. So like the feeling of the people did something for me. Then I remember Roger Mills played a video of these prison inmates, you know, these big, beefed up, aggressive looking guys. And then what happened to them after this understanding went within prisons and jails and how it kind of rehumanized them. And it just struck me, wow, this has the potential not just to kind of solve what's going on in here, but draw out what's going on here, to rehumanize, to kind of put people in touch with their innate or natural capacity for being human. And so the big change with me is when I started studying this, I say studying this, I mean, that's a different term, but I realized that everything I learned as a coach was really helpful. And to build on that, I learned a way to articulate something that allowed people to experience an ease in life, regardless of what life was doing or throwing at them, an ease in life that really put them in touch with their innate capacity for insight, their solution-orientated thinking, but also their heart, their propensity to be of service in the world. It wasn't just about here, it was kind of about here as well. And so for me, the change was huge. And I love not having to try and change people or fix people or give them things to do. I really talk about an understanding how all the human experience is being generated from the inside out. And it's just a conversation. It's a relaxed conversation that as people get to understand the wisdom and the logic of how that works, they're presenting issues they come to me with are naturally resolved without even focusing on them. And that's just outrageous.
Well, I would imagine you've got a few coaches listening now. So I know that there's, I love what you talk about, which is kind of the logic to this. Can you say a little bit more about that? Because I know sometimes when I try and explain this, I get a little bit I get a bit lost in my explanation. So how do you talk about the logic? Tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, no, this sounds completely polar opposite, but there is literally a spiritual logic. If you don't like the word spiritual, reframe that to a formless, having no form. So there's a formless logic behind how we create our experience as human beings, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive our past, how we perceive our future, how we perceive our partners, our work, our boss, our life. All of it is being generated from one discriminator. Now, as a three principles facilitator, what I do is I help people point towards the logic of how that works and away from the illogic of how it doesn't work. And I'm going to try and keep this brief, which is a struggle, but I'll do my best. At this moment in human history, we believe in a system that isn't true. A bit like we used to believe we lived on a flat world and now we know it's round. Psychologically, we believe the world works outside in, meaning that if my partner didn't shout at me, I wouldn't feel sad. If I got a pay rise, I'll feel happier. When I'm on holiday, I'm going to feel good. If my children's behaved, I wouldn't get so stressed. So it's all about out there making us feel like we feel. Now that's completely logical and appropriate to think that, because that's what it really looks like. But what I found is that there's a missing link between out there and in here, in our human psychological, spiritual, emotional experience. And the missing link is thought. Not what we think, but the power that allows us to think. And what I mean by that is, as an example, have you ever had an experience of yourself and you wake up in the morning and you think, I'm really good, I'm a great business person, or I'm a great mum, or I'm a good friend. And then 5 minutes later, an hour later, you're thinking, oh, I'm a terrible business person, nobody likes me. Well, what's happening is that the sense of ourselves is coming from our thinking about ourselves, okay? Have you ever had, like, take relationships, have you ever looked at your partner? It doesn't have to be romantic, it could be like, you know, a parent or a child, and thought, oh, they're beautiful, I love the way they do that, they're just brilliant. And then 5 minutes a day, you know, an hour later, they're doing the same thing, but it's really frustrating you. Again, it's not them making you feel something, because you're missing the missing link of thought. It's your thinking about them giving you your experience of them. Now, when you include the logic or the principle of thought in your experience, you realize you're experiencing your thinking of everything. Your past, your future, your partner, your money, your life. That is how your life can look horrible, or it can look amazing, depending on your thinking in the moment. And your thinking in the moment is changing. And so thought is literally the building block of reality, of our reality. If you understand the building block of reality, you're literally seeing a new reality. So as a facilitator, what I do, I facilitate being defined as to make easy, not to train, but to make easy, to facilitate people understanding the nature of how their experience is being operated. When you get that piece of the puzzle, you are, oh boy, there is just this infinite possibility, this infinite potential to become, to do. And I haven't really spoken about anything else to do with the principles. Just that one discriminator has the potential to, and has changed everything. And I've been all over the world. I've been in prisons, I've been in schools, I've been in communities, I've worked with earthquake survivors, I've worked with people with post-traumatic stress disorder, I've worked with people labelled as schizoaffective and depressed, and there's not one person I have seen who, when they see the nature of how all of it is being created, that they haven't become good, healthy, resilient, functioning people, it's a great hope for humanity. And for me, I love it. It's best job in the world.
So since you came across the principles, then it sounds as though that when you spoke earlier, you talked of all the things that you've done. Has this been your direction of travel now as a coach and facilitator trainer?
Yeah, I think so, because I think as coaches and therapists, people really want to do the best they can for others. You know, they if they have people coming to them who are suffering, they want to be able to help them. And so I think for me, I'd always looked for tools, strategies and techniques that had the most impact with the people and the most helpful for people, not just for them, but for me too. And so as I saw the nature of this, it was just like a bit of a no-brainer to keep going and looking this direction, because I realized that you can help someone's psychology, but when you can free them from that, there's ultimate freedom. It kind of, if I say the word spiritual again, I'm talking about this formless potential. We have the ability as spiritual beings as to encapsulate this formless potential to really excel and do and become anything we want. We're not limited by what we think, because we understand thought isn't an instruction as to who you are and what you can do. It's a construction of our minds. And the more we see the constructed like nature of ourselves and our reality, we don't take it as seriously, which allows us to do anything the hell that we want, because we're not taking our thinking so seriously in the first place.
So in essence then, what I'm hearing is one of the things that you'll be sharing on the 29th of July is looking at the principle of thought, not so much as the content of our thinking, but much more as the creative potential that we are able to think in the first place. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
absolutely. I know when I've spoken about that, people are like, well, what does that mean? But it's a bit like, if you imagine we have the capacity, all 7.2 billion of us has the innate or natural capacity to think. What we think, the content of thought, I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm good, I'm bad, I like sushi, I don't like sushi, whatever, all of that is content. We're not looking at content. We're looking before content to the power that's generating content. Where most of my training was basically using thought to change thought, which could be trying not to have certain kinds of thinking, reframing kinds of thinking, being aware of certain kinds of thinking. This goes before to the foundation of, well, where does thought originate from? What power is generating thought? You understand that power, then you do not generate the same kind of content in the first place that gets you in trouble. And also, if you do generate the same kind of content and it's not helpful, you really don't take it as seriously. So for instance, Liz, when we were talking about, I'll talk in front of these people and all the rest of it, I remembered, I used to be terrified of public speaking. The thought of getting up and talking about something in front of lots of people used to terrify me. And the funny thing is now I can talk to people, I can have thoughts of fear of talking, but it just kind of flows through because I'm not so attached to them. So I know in meditation they talk about non-attachment to thought, but you can't do non-attachment to thought. You're just naturally unattached or you're not. The logic and wisdom of this three principles as a paradigm, an implication of it is that thought flows through. with less attachment to it, but it has nothing to do with you trying not to attach to it. It's just an implication of the understanding.
So on the 29th of July, you're going to come along, have a chat with probably a lot of people that are interested in coaching or therapy work or change workers. It might be that they're quite new to coming across this thing called the three principles and what is it. And it might be that you're talking as well to people that have been exploring it for some time and are really looking at continuing to develop and deepen their understanding. And it sounds like you could spend the whole day there talking, Rudi, but we're only going to give you a little slot, so I hope you can fit in everything in that slot. But we're very much looking forward to seeing you. So thank you for saying you'll come along on the 29th of July, and thank you very much for your time today. It's been an absolute joy speaking with you.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for the invite.